As you can see, I started reconstructing the glass urn. Prior to this process, I evaluated what kind of adhesive I would be using to reconstruct the urn. So one of my choices was the cellulose nitrate, which the glass urn was previously reconstructed with this adhesive in the 1970s. So I decided that this particular adhesive, although it's easy to use and apply during the reconstruction process, may not be so strong to actually withstand the whole kind of traveling and handling process for the urn. And the second adhesive I kind of thought and evaluated about was epoxy resins. Because the edges of the glass fragments were really, really thick, I would have to use a lot of epoxy resin. So in order not to create a stronger bond than the glass itself, because it's an archaeological object, it is, you know, really old, and we do not want to introduce anything stronger than the glass itself, I decided that this would not be a good option either. The third choice was the Paraloid B72, which is an acrylic adhesive. Again, we often use it in ceramics and glass objects conservation. And as I talk to colleagues and discuss them, evaluate the strength of the adhesive, Paraloid seems to be creating quite a good bond for the object to be kind of traveling and being handled within the next 5 years. So my decision was using a kind of conservation-friendly Paraloid B72. As you can see here, I have been working on the object for the last 3 weeks now, and most of the fragments are started kind of going up. It's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, really. So basically, I either put individual fragments together, like small fragments together, to build up like bigger fragments, or I kind of just add the whole large fragment onto the kind of base of the glass urn and start building up from it. I use, for example, sand trays like this, sometimes to put the glass in if I'm kind of adhering a fragment on. I put like a cling film to actually protect the abrasion from the sand. So obviously it creates this kind of, you know, support mechanism. The good practice is that, you know, we pour a little bit onto the little kind of glass jar. So this prevents the contamination in the bigger jar. So I can just use the adhesive in the small jar here. Then I actually take a little bit of it with a bamboo skewer, and I put it along the edge of the glass fragment, and I apply it along the edge of the glass fragment. And during this process, I'm trying not to kind of interfere with the adhesive much, because I don't want to create any kind of air bubbles within the adhesive, because if that happens, it may actually create an aesthetically undesirable effect. Once I actually place the fragment on the larger fragment and find the correct position, I try not to move it. And then, because I have my adhesive is thick enough to hold it together as well, it's around 40 to 50%, I can use Scotch tape to actually apply along the join to give some strength to the join. And then I leave it. And if necessary, sometimes I may need to use, you know, these clamps to actually, you know, hold it in certain areas to give more strength and support. And yes, and I leave it until adhesive completely sets, around maybe 2-3 hours. I prefer not to touch it before I start adhering or applying the other fragments, you know, onto this one. So because you do not want introduce any kind of movement onto the fragment and spoil the kind of good join before the adhesive is set.